This is Alana, people. Hello. Hello. So, one question that I have been getting so much over the last week or so, in fact, over the last month, is students been asking me, Sir, why did you become a teacher? And there's only one of three reasons why anyone would ask that. Either they're like, Sir, why did you become a teacher? You are the best teacher in the universe. Or, Sir, why did you become a teacher? What's wrong with you? Why would you be so mental to become a teacher? And thirdly, it would be, Sir, why did you become a teacher? You are absolutely rubbish. So I'm going to take you on a journey as to why I became, or how I became, a teacher. So this is where the story begins. It used to be called Washwood Heath Technology College. It's now called Washwood Heath Academy. It's now a secondary school as well as a primary school. This building is new actually. It's just made like maybe a couple of months ago. It looks very nice. However, 15 years ago, this school was anything but nice. So this is what was referred to as the front entrance of Washwood Heath School, and this school was literally a ghetto. It was all about gang violence. It was all about being in a gang. For 5 years, I can honestly say that we didn't have a full-time teacher because quite simply they couldn't, it was tough to stay here as a teacher. Now looking back, if I was a teacher here, I wouldn't have stayed. It was just absolutely mental. My opinion is that's because, well, it's not even an opinion, it's a fact that even it came to a point where head teachers would stay half a term, 2 terms, and then leave. The head teachers couldn't even handle this school. There were literally no lessons going on, which obviously, I didn't think this at the time, but I did think once I left, I was like, okay, you know what? This is a learning point for me. If I were a teacher, I would make sure that people have the opportunity to learn properly. And that's one thing I feel about my education is that, I wasn't given the full opportunity to reach my full potential. And that's probably one of the reasons why I became a teacher. In fact, it is one of the reasons. So I was like, I need to give other people the opportunities that maybe I didn't have and become the best teacher in the universe. Now, here though, we did have some good teachers. I mean, literally, my maths was so weak for a very long time period. There was a point where we had a technology teacher and he would have an escape to break question, and he asked me a very simple question, and he just targeted me just because it was just my day. The question was, what is a half at a quarter? Now you gotta remember, I was in a top set maths class. What's a half at a quarter? I was stumped. I have no idea. And the other students in the class were like, what the heck, how do you not know? You're in a top set maths class. I was in a top set maths class, but there was no maths being taught. So half and a quarter, I was like, I don't know. And some of the students was like, well, imagine half a cake. I was like, okay, I can do that. And they said, imagine a quarter of a cake. I said, well, I can't do that. I don't know what a quarter is. And some of the students were really shocked at that as well. And literally, I knew no maths at all. How bad is that? It wasn't until year 11 where we had a teacher who was he was the finance person of the school, but he took over and he was doing he started teaching us maths. His name was Mr. Jupe, and I can honestly say I learned all my maths from him in that 1 year, and that's probably one of the few times we had a really good teacher. I mean, there were other good teachers. Mr. Jones, who was PE teacher, was really good. Everyone got on with him, but he's a PE teacher. Everyone gets on with PE teachers. Sorry to say, it's an easy job, PE teachers. Controversial statement. Then there was Mr. Jones, the history teacher. Now, he made history fun, right? And one of the things that I don't like about maybe some history teachers is they can't get rid of their bias. Now, if you are a history teacher and you are biased about history, you are not a history teacher, you are a propagandist. Me and him, we would have all these regular debates and discussion about history, about the British Empire, about what they did, what they didn't do, the division of all the countries around the world today. And you know what, he would acknowledge the points. He would say, yeah, you know what, you're right. But at the same time, he would say, you know what, I'm English, and I'm proud of it. I'm like, yeah, that's good for you, but that's not what we're talking about. But he was brilliant history teacher, Mr. Jones at Washington Technology College at the time, really excellent teacher. Who else was good? We had Mr. Darby for English. He was wicked as well. The reason why he was so good was because he used to read Of Mice and Men to us, and his reading voice was amazing. We used to all just sit down and listen to him read. Now, one of the statements actually one of the teachers made about my science actually. So I had a science teacher, again, he maybe lasted maybe half a term, well, not half a term, maybe 2 terms or something, and he was like, I said to him right towards the end, I was like, I can't remember his name. Actually, I do remember his name. I don't know if I should say though. I won't say it. But anyway, this teacher, I said to him, sir, what do you think I'll get in my GCSE science? Everyone called me Hader then, they still do. And he was like, Hader, I would be surprised if you got a C. I was like, now to a lot of students that would put them off, but for me, that was just a challenge. I was like, yo, you for real? I said to him, listen sir, I'm gonna get you 2 A stars and I want you to be there on results day. And I got 2 A's, not bad really, but he wasn't there for results day. How rude. Whatever. But you know, what I'm trying to say here is that if a teacher kind of says something to put you down, don't see it as something to put you down. See it as a challenge that I'm going to prove you wrong, right? So, main point from here, one of the reasons that influenced me to become a teacher was my bad secondary school education. I think, in a lot of sense, it was a waste of potential, and it didn't really prepare me for life. In the sense that, you know, I found the GCSEs really, really easy, so I didn't have to do much revision. It was quite easy, but at the same time, because it was so easy, once I got to A levels, it's like, oh my god, how do I do this? How do I revise? You know, what can I do? And that's one of the things that influenced me to become a teacher. Next, we're gonna go visit my college. So before I go to my college though, I have to say there were some good teachers here. I've already mentioned Mr. Jupe, Mr. Jones, Mr. Darby. They were phenomenal teachers. They kind of showed me at the time like what it is to be a good teacher. On top of that, we had I really got on with them, right? The heads of year, which was Mr. Morty Boys and Mr. Bishop, 2 really good heads of year. I mean, like, Mr. Morty Boys went through a lot. I mean, like, dealing with the problems of the school. I mean, there was just kind of emphasized, like, there would be a fight maybe every day, and these were like people who knew how to throw a punch. So it's not like a minor scuffle, it was serious. So I mean, I feel sorry for the teachers that were there at the time. I don't blame that they left. I don't blame that they couldn't come to work, or they left before a term or half a term or whatever. I don't blame them. At the same time though, I say that it was management. That's a management problem from the top. You know, if kids are running the school, there's a problem with management. Yeah, if there are any Washwood Heathians watching, then you know, do post a message below bigging up one of the teachers and why they were good. That'd be nice. Let's get a positive message out there as well. So here's where I went to college, Joseph Chamberlain Sixth Form College, which is now apparently Ofsted Grade 1. Good for them. This is the new building though. This building was not here or was not made when I was at Joseph Chamberlain. I mean, the campus now looks absolutely beautiful, right? It looks absolutely amazing. So before this campus, they had an old building. Now it was really, really old, decrepit looking building. In fact, it looked like a factory. It never looked like we were going to college. It looked like we were going to a night shift at a factory. It was that draining to just go to that building. At this college, at this sixth form, there were some amazing teachers, right? Chris Hall, amazing physics teacher. I mean, like, probably, I mean, obviously I don't know every physics teacher in the world, but he was phenomenal. He'd take a really complicated concept and break it down so it was so easy. and that's he's definitely a teacher that inspired me in terms of how to teach, in terms of number one, kind of taking a complicated issue and making it easy, and number two, one thing that I absolutely loved about him, and it's something that I believe I do, and I definitely try to do anyway, is if a student has a question, they can ask it. If they don't understand anything, he said right at the beginning of his lesson, if you don't understand anything, just get my attention and I will definitely help you with whatever topic that is. So he was definitely a person that influenced me to become a teacher. Not directly, but by the way he did things, I was like, wow, I'd love to be able to do that. And he was amazing teacher. I mean, literally, in his physics class, at the end of AS, there were 12 A's and 2 U's. So you either got it or you didn't with his class. So, I mean, he was excellent. Finally, the chemistry teachers here, I won't name because they weren't that good, sorry to say. And if you remember what I said about history and propagandist, well, here I met a propagandist, somebody that literally could not handle a different point of view, to the point that they were like, they asked me a question about what I think about Pakistan at the time. This was like 13 years ago. And I was like, well, I mean, my first-hand experience, which makes me a primary source, is that it is very corrupt as a country generally. Now, there's a new prime minister in Pakistan called Imran Khan recently, and he's really turning it around. He's cutting down corruption. He is cutting down bribes. He's cutting down loads of kind of things that would happen normally, but they're kind of getting rid of. And on top of that, even like food standards, they're working on that, and they are like increasing investment into Pakistan, they're increasing trade in Pakistan, they are refurbishing, renewing, rebuilding, remodeling Pakistan. Even Peshawar was getting remodeled, more investment in renewable energies, all this and that, and he's like doing a really good job so far. But back in the day, and for a very long time period, there was a lot of corruption in Pakistan, and when I, as a primary source, said to this teacher, it's a corrupt country because X, Y, and Z, they just couldn't handle it. Because it's not in their textbook, it doesn't say that. And I'm like, yo, I'm a primary source here. I'm telling you what it's like. I've seen it firsthand. And ever since then, she didn't like me. Unbelievable. What kind of teacher is that? Anyway. So that is one of the influences of me becoming a teacher. I'd probably put it down to great teaching from Chris Hall. Where do we go next? Let's go to uni. So this is where I went to university. So initially I was here for 2 years. I was studying pharmacy, and the fact that really my Washwood Heath school didn't prepare me for the wider world, and on top of that, the fact that I was in education for quite a long time by this point, 5 years of school, 2 years of college, 2 years of uni, I became really, really tired of it all, and so I needed a break, and that's why I took a 2-year break and ended up working in other places. However, before I took a break, I was studying pharmacy, and there was a presentation that we had to do. I can't remember what the topic was. It was some kind of social science to do with sociology or psychology or something like that. Anyway, I remember that very, very well. Basically, when we had to present our project, every single student was holding the presentation, their hand out, and was literally shaking. Or they were just reading from the PowerPoint slide. I was the only one. I went there, I had a few bullet points on my slide, and I was just going off top of my head, cracking jokes, etc, etc. The lecturer who was marking was literally in stitches by the end of that presentation. I made the whole thing about girls versus boy thing, and girls are better or boys are better. I won't answer that question. So I made it all about that, and she was like, have you ever thought about teaching? And I was like, well, actually I have, but she kind of almost gave me that push. Then at this university there was a scheme going called the SAS scheme, and no, I didn't join the Marines or the SAS service. What does SAS stand for? I don't know. Sea and Air Service? I don't know. Anyway, the university pointed me out to the SAS scheme, which was a student associate scheme, and you never guess where I ended up going back to. Washwood Heath School. And there I was I was a teacher for 2 weeks, well, observing teaching and taking part in teaching for 2 weeks. And after that 2 week period, it was paid, so it was £600 for the 2 weeks. It was really good. And there I got a written reference from one of the workers there who said, Mr. Hayder is a natural teacher. Because I went in there, just took over one of his lessons, and just went from there really. And he was like, you know what, you are a natural, you are really, really good. You know, he goes, this profession is probably for you. And that was after just dealing 2 weeks of teaching. So that was a really big push for me to say, you know what, yeah, I think I want to be a teacher. So I came back to the university after the second year of pharmacy. I dropped the course because I was really tired, really needed a break from education. But luckily for me, I had a family that kept me motivated, kept me going, kept pushing me to kind of complete my education after my break. That is another motivator for me as to why I became a teacher. I wanted to be that person who perhaps those people who don't have a motivating family, who don't have a family that keeps them saying, you know what, you can do this, you can do it, don't worry, etc., etc. That if they don't have that, I can be that motivating factor. Because some students at the end of the day, that's all they need. They need somebody to say, you know what, you can do it. And just that kind of morale boost. And that's something that I felt, you know what, I can do that. So anyway, let's go to a point. This was like the tipping point, and we'll get there and I'll tell you about it. Wicked. Okay, so I end up taking 2 years out of uni, or maybe it was 3 years, I can't remember now. And I end up getting a job at a PRU. The PRU was right in the middle of Alum Rock on Ralph Road in a complex called Norton Hall. And here, there's loads of change in managers because at the time I didn't have a degree, and the directors were of the opinion that you need a degree to be the manager. Anyway, I end up, long story short, I end up becoming the manager because the previous managers kept messing everything up, and then I had to always kind of fix it up in a sense. So, to be fair, one of the directors, his name is Zagam Sharif, for full name, from Jet Shop. He kind of had a lot of faith in me, right? So, real respect to that guy. He was like, you know what, this is the guy for the job. And so I end up forming a new curriculum, a new timetable for the staff, a new timetable for the students, and a new curriculum. And there was one student that really stood out to me. He came in to the school, and he came in and he was extremely, unbelievably psychotic. I don't mean that literally. He wasn't literally a psycho, but my first encounter with him is he comes into the class and he just starts picking up pencils and just shooting them across the classroom. And it was quite a heated confrontation between myself and him in terms of trying to get him disciplined. And like, you know, I was shouting at him, he was shouting back, and it was just escalating things. So anyway, we kind of we dealt with him like one way or another on that day, but it wasn't a good situation for anyone. It wasn't good for me, it wasn't good for him. You know, it was a bit of a tense situation in that sense, like, you know, how are we going to deal with this kid? Anyway, the very next day, he's following the timetable that I've put in place, and I just walk in, I go over to him, and I sit down to his level, and I look at his work, and his work is fantastic. It's unbelievably well presented, really good, amazing work. I you know, I'm really sad that I've forgotten what his name is, but I call him by his name and I say, you know, did you do that by yourself? And he's like, yeah. I said, oh my goodness, that is some amazing work. And literally just that point of reference, just that acknowledgement, he began to change. And I couldn't believe it, how such a small statement literally caused this individual to change. I'm not saying this can work for everyone, but in this case it did work. And on top of that, this is something that I personally believe in, and I think loads of schools have this weakness throughout this whole country, and that is they kind of try to isolate the parents from the child. In other words, what schools do is they kind of treat the student independent of the parents. Whereas my personal belief and what I put in that school, the ethos of the parents and the students have to work together. So what I did was I called mom and I said, look, he's done really well and I want to keep this going. But what we're going to do is we need to apply sanctions at home if he's misbehaving here. And she was like, yeah, she was on board, which is really good. And so what happened as a result was whenever he'd mess about, I'd call home and I'd say, look, this is what happened. And she would ban him from going to football because he would have football and he was part of a league or something like that. And that forced him to kind of behave properly. Now, on top of this, though, mum was really good, and his behaviour changed completely. He became really good constantly, and he was like one of our best students, from being one of the worst to one of the best in a matter of a week or two. And so what mum did is she bought him a brand new pair of stud football shoes, and then he'd come in and he'd tell me about that. He'd tell me how his football's going. And what was amazing for me was not only did his behaviour improve, but his appearance improved as well. He was quite scruffy when he first started over that week period. And once he began to become more confident in himself, his appearance also improved. He was looking after himself. He was coming dressed quite smart. And literally we had phone calls from loads of parents from that school saying, thank you very much, you've improved my child. And they'd all say, we don't know how you did it, but thank you very much. And a lot of them went back into mainstream school. Now, am I saying that we saved everyone, we helped everyone? No, I'm not. But for me, it kind of showed me that, you know what, we can help those that are disaffected. We can try and give them the best chance. And that is the story of how I became a teacher. So in summary, there's three things. Number one, it was my education myself. I was not happy with how I was educated at secondary school level. It didn't give me the life skills or the practical science skill. I mean, one of the problems that I had in college was everyone else knew how to do the practicals. I was struggling because we didn't even do a single practical at secondary school. Like I said, I don't blame the teachers for that. The school was just mad, so we couldn't do that. So that's number one. I want other students to have the best opportunity that they can. Point number two was I had a lot of positive influence from other teachers that kind of made me want to teach as well. And point number three, I saw the positive impact that I can have on other students, and that's something that I really wanted to do and give back, kind of thing. I mean, but like I said, not all students, unfortunately, can be saved. That is the reality of life. But we can do our best to help those who want to be helped, and those who refuse to be helped, you can only try your best. And so that is my journey of how and why I became a teacher. If you do have any questions, then let me know in the comments below. Don't be a tight git and subscribe to the channel. Bye.